for our friends to join. All right, so for your due now, you're supposed to turn in your contracts if you have it. Because you are face-to-face, you're able to turn them in physically and just bring it back and put it in the box, okay? If you want to, you can at home upload it virtually if you want. I did make a post and an email to let y'all know that how to do that. Make sure you picked up your notes for the day out of the basket. If you're online, then you can either download, you can write them out just like by numbering. But for us, here we are. So in your notebook, I wanted you to tell me in your own words, what is the definition of domain and range of a relation? Does anyone remember domain and range from Algebra 1? What did you write? If you hear the word domain, what goes off in your head, in your brain? X-axis, X values, okay? When you hear range, what do you think about? The Y values, right? Your independent variable, your dependent variable, your Y-axis, okay? You all are here, and you all took Algebra 1, and you all passed the STAR test. So you should be able to tell me what domain and range are, unless you're faking it till you make it. So let's start it. So today's purpose is for you to practice taking pictures, uploading, and submitting via Canvas Student app. Also using Desmos and class discussion board. Hopefully you make it to the second bullet. The first bullet took first period, all periods. So we're gonna first start off with, instead of me direct teaching you the algebra review, you're going to be watching a 13-minute video, okay? So you have the notes to fill in that go along with the video. Does everyone pick up their fill in the blank notes? All right, so you're gonna start with that. And the video will look like this.
Relations here. Relation is any group of ordered pairs. Relations are not always linear, and they can be displayed in three ways. You can show them either using tables, graphs, or ordered pairs.
All right. So multiple representation of linear functions. You have your tables, graphs, ordered pairs. There's also one more that you guys went over in Algebra 1. Do you remember what it's called? We have those two egg shapes and you have lines drawn to them. Anyone remembers what that term is? The two egg shapes, like you have two ovals, and you draw lines from one oval to the other. Anyone remembers that? Remember seeing it? You know what I'm talking about? Mapping. Does that ring any bell? The two ovals, and you draw from the X, from your independent to your dependent thing. That's also one. But mapping is considered kind of a table-ish, but it's really its own.
A good way to think of a relation is a relationship between X and Y, or a set of ordered pairs. Now let's take a look at a special type of relation known as a function. Now talking about functions, they are a very important term to understand. They're one of the cornerstones of things that you need to know, not only this year, but moving forward in mathematics. So a function is a relationship between two sets of data with one property that every input has only one output. So that's what makes a function different than every other relation. It has only one output for every input. Now, what is an input? An input is any X value. So when we're talking about inputs, we're talking about X values. That means when we're talking about outputs, we're talking about Y values. When we're talking about the domain, that's the set of all X values. When we're talking about the range, that's the set of all Y values. So input goes with X value, domain goes with X value, Y value goes with output, range goes with Y value. When we're talking about the independent variable, those are words used to describe the input or X value. So when we're using words and not numbers, we're talking about the independent variable. Likewise, when we're talking about the dependent variable, again, we're going to be using words to describe the input or the Y value. So again, when we're using words, we're talking about the dependent variable.
All right. So my little way of remembering this. Oh, fiddle part. I'll go back to it. I'll have to write on it. Dixie Road. So how does that work? My board is off. Dixie Road. So Dixie stands for domain, independent, domain, input, X value, independent variable. Roy, range, output, Y value, dependent variable. Dixie and Roy, I call them my two old hound dogs. Just sitting out here helping me learn and keep things in order. So domain goes with range. So well, my board is way off. Yeah. What? Yeah. Well, you guys had the oval, and you have something in them. Y'all remember seeing that? That's math. Yeah. And so Dixie Roy is just a way to help you remember what are the synonyms for domain, what are the synonyms for range. Cool? All right, my board is acting funny. I'm so sorry. It's doing strange things. Now it's got it right together. There we go. Whew. All right. I'm gonna clear my drawing. I'm gonna close out of this. I'm gonna restart.
So we're talking about outputs, we're talking about Y values. When we're talking about the domain, that's the set of all X values. Y goes with X output, with X value, using words that the dependent input or the Y value. So again, when we're using words, we're talking about the dependent variable. Now let's take a look at example A. So here we are at example A. It says, look at the relation below and graph the data on this table. So it looks like somebody's been shopping at Target and they've spent some money on some items. So we're going to go ahead and put those points on our graph here. So we've got the number of items purchased and the money in dollars spent. So notice down there in our graph, we've got the number of items along our x-axis, and we've got the total amount of money spent on our y-axis. So let's go ahead and plot our points. So the first point is we plot 8 items for $5. So we're going to go over to our 8, and the graph goes by 10, so we know that 5 is going to be about halfway, so we're going to put our point there. The next person spent 14, or they bought 14 items, so they spent $40, so we'll go over to 14, and we'll put our $40 there. Next we have, they spent 2 items, or bought 2 items, and spent $60, and the last person bought 6 items for $35. So now that we've got our points on the graph, we have some questions. So should we connect these dots? Should we connect them and make them some sort of graph? The answer there is going to be no. No, we're not going to connect these points. The reason why is the points between the plotted points really have no meaning. That's the difference between a graph that is discrete, meaning that we're not going to connect the points, and continuous, meaning that it's connected via a line or some other shape. So this is a discrete graph because the points are not connected. The points in the middle don't really mean anything. You can't say the points between 2 and 4, or the number that we plotted, 2 and 6, mean anything. Because when you go to Target, depending on what you buy and how many of those things you buy, it changes the price. You can buy 1 really expensive item, or you can buy 17 really cheap items, and that will change the price. So the points in the middle don't really affect one another. They don't matter. So therefore, we're not going to connect our points. The last thing that we need to do is write this relation as a set of ordered pairs. So we're going to do that by using this special shape on the end known as a brace. Anytime that you write a set of ordered pairs in this unit, you are going to need to have these braces. They don't have to be drawn perfectly, but they should be able to be identified as braces. Anytime that you're writing a set of ordered pair in a relation or a function, they need to be shown with those braces on the side, denoting that they are part of a set.
All right.
All right, example B. We've got a graph that shows inches of snow and the number of days out of school once you have those inches of snow. Now we have some questions here that are talking about our independent and dependent variables, as well as our domain and range for this relation. So remember, when we're talking about independent and dependent variable, we want words. So independent variable is going to be our X value, or the thing that we're going to be changing, or the thing that's going to affect the dependent variable. So which thing is going to be affected is going to be determining our dependent variable. So is the inches of snow going to be affecting the number of days that we get out of school? Most likely, as opposed to the other way, where the number of days we get out of school somehow create more inches of snow. That seems unlikely. So our independent variable in this case is going to be the inches of snow, because that's the thing that's going to affect the number of days that we get out of school, or our dependent variable. Our dependent variable depends on what happens with our independent variable. Now, the second part of our problem asks for the domain and range of this relation. So again, I'm going to be writing down all of the values, because when we're talking about the domain, we're talking about all the x values. We're talking about the range, we're talking about all the y values. So I'm going to be writing down all the x values that come with the independent variable, and that's going to be right here, 3, 8, 11, 15, and 21. Now, it's important to note a few things here. Because I was writing points, I made sure that I had my braces here, because I'm writing points in the function unit to donate. They are part of a set. I also put the points in order from least to greatest. And anytime that you're listing the domain and range, you should be listing them in order from least to greatest, or the one that has the less value to the one that has the greatest value. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my range, or all of the y values. And again, I'm going to use my braces. And again, I'm going to put them in order from least to greatest. Now let's take a look at example C. A couple points that, so here we are in example C, and this time they've given us a graph, and they're asking us again about independent and dependent variable, as well as domain and range. Last time we were given a table, this time we were given a graph. So we're going to need to start with our independent variable. And as we know, that's going to be our x value. So taking a look at the x label on our graph, we know that's going to be our independent variable. So our independent variable here is going to be the age of dog. The dependent variable, we can look along our y-axis and we can see the weight of the dog. So that's going to be our y value, or weight of dog, or our dependent variable. Now we need to list all of our domain and range for this relation, which becomes a little more complicated because their points are not given to us. So what we need to do is take a look at our graph, first going horizontally to find all of our domains. Then we're going to go vertically to find all of our ranges. So when we go here, we've got 1 point at 1/2, we've got another point at 3, and we've got another point at 2, another point at 1, another point at 6, another point at 8. So that's going to be our domain as we go across. Now, I sometimes have more than 1 point at a place. So for example, I have 2 points at 6. I'm only going to write it down one time, because I'm only talking about the numbers of the domain, and 6 is part of the domain. I don't need to show that it happened more than one time. It could happen 100 times. I just need to record that 6 is part of the domain. So again, I'm going to start with my braces. Again, they don't have to be the prettiest thing that you've ever seen, but they should be identified as braces. It looks like we have 1/2 of 0.5 as one of our points. We have a point at 1. We have another point at 2. We have a point at 3. Then we have our 1 point at 6, and finally a point at 8. And then we're going to close with our braces. Again, they don't have to be the prettiest thing in the world, but they should be identified as braces. The next thing we're going to do is write down our range. So we're going to do that by going horizontally. These are by 10. So I've got some points that look like they're at 5, another point at 10, another point at 20, a couple points at 30, a point at 50, and a point at 80. So again, I'm going to write those down using my braces. Again, they don't have to be the prettiest thing in the world. And I'm going to put them in order from least to greatest. So again, I've got a point at 5. I've got a point at 10. I've got a point at 20. I've got a couple points at 30. But again, we're only going to write it down one time. We've got a point at 50 and a point at 80. And again, we're going to close our braces. Again, the braces don't have to be super pretty. Just make them look like braces for the best that you can do. All right, now let's move on to example D. So here at example D, we've got a multiple choice question. It says, answer the questions based off the table. And it says, which table has the domain of -2, 0, 4, and 5? Which table has the range of 3 and 4? So we're going to start with our domain. We're looking for -2, 0, and 4. And since we're talking about domain, we're looking for x values. So going to our first column, I've got -1. No, that's not something we're looking for. 2, not something we're looking for. 3, not something we're looking for. So number 1 does not appear to be helping us out in the domain category. Now let's take a look at number 2. -2, yep, I was looking for that. 0, I was looking for that. 4, yes, I was looking for that. And 5, I was looking for that. So at least number 2 is going to be an example of that. Let's see if there's any others. -1, no. 2, no. 3, no. And 5, yes. Well, it's got one of the things that we're looking for, but the other 3, not so much. So 3 is not an option. And the last one, we've got -1, no. -1, no. 2, no. And 3, no. So the only choice for that one is number 2. Now let's do the same thing with our range. We're looking for a range of 3 and 4. So Y's got 3, it's got 4. Oh, but then it has 5. So although it has 3 and 4, it has 2 points that we don't have listed. So number 1 cannot be our choice. Looking at number 2, we don't have 3, or well, we have 3, but we don't have 4. So number 2 is not going to be correct. Now, again, number 3 has 3 and 4, but it also has 2 points that we're not looking for. So therefore, it is not number 3. Number 4, we've got 3, 3, 4, 4. So yes, number 4 does work for what we're looking for. Now let's take a look at the last example. So this time it's kind of a select all, and they've given us select all the numbers that match this description, all the numbers in the set of the domain. So again, since we're talking about domain, we're going to be looking for X values. So our first one has 3, 5, and 6. So looking at my number line, does that fit in our domain? So I've got 3, I've got a point at 3, 5, I've got a point at 5, and 6, I've got a point at 6. So all of those points fall within the line, so that is a correct answer. Looking at my next one, I've got 1, 5, and 10. So 1, not on the line, and any other one doesn't really matter because we know one of them is not on the line. Same thing for the next one. I've got a point at 0, but that's not on the line, so that's not going to be a right answer. 2.5 does have a point on the line. 4 does have a point on the line, and 7 does have a point on the line, so that's going to be a correct answer. 8, 9, and 10. 8 is on the line, but 9 and 10 are not, so that is not a correct answer. Again, we were only looking for a domain or X values that fell along that line. If they didn't have all of the values in their set fall on that line, they were not a correct choice. That brings us to the end of this video. So if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.
All right. Please tell me now you guys remember some stuff. Does that sound familiar? Remember that it's not brand new information, right? Because I'll go crazy if it is. Well, perfect. I won't go crazy, by the way. Now, this is our first assignment. And so for our first assignment was for you to take the notes, follow along, and we're going to use this to practice submitting work through Canvas, paperwork. So like if you are doing something in your workbook for you to submit it, remember we're minimizing paper transactions, okay? So here's the video of how we're going to submit work through Canvas. This is just one option.
So this is a video on how to upload your pictures taken for your assignment. The first thing you want to do is download Google Docs. Once you download it, Google Docs, you're going to click plus, new document. Here, you're going to actually click on where it says the plus sign, and we're going to add a footnote. What this is, it allows you to put in your header. In your header, you can just write your name, Shauna Jones. You can write your teacher, Mrs. Jones. I don't know what capitalize the date, 9/8.
Google Docs.
2020. You can write the class, whatever. Algebra. Okay. And this just ensures that when I add the pictures that this will stay in that position. So my header's there. And now I'm going to click plus again. Sorry, I'm going to click plus again. And I'm going to go to image. I'm going to go from camera. And that means I'm going to go directly to my notes and take the picture. Boom. So that's page 1. And so page 1 is done. And then I have a 3-pager. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go If I click on it, it allows me to make it smaller, make it bigger. Click enter. I'm going to add another one. I'm going to add my next page on camera. Take picture. Boom. Picture's done. Again, if I'm like, it's too big, I can click on it, resize it. If it's not big enough, I can zoom in on it. Enter. I'm going to add another, my last page. Image from camera. Above it, take the picture. And there's my last page of the assignment. And my assignment is done. I can hit check. It's going to save. And then I click on where the title is, and I'm allowed to title it. It's a good idea to title things with your name, and then what the class is and the assignment. Vocabulary assignment. I'm going to click OK. Assignment's done. Save. Good to go. Now, what I can do next, I'm going to I can export it, I can add on, I can do whatever, but I'm going to share and export. So for mine, that means I'm going to print. And what that allows me to do on my Samsung is to save it as a PDF. I can save it anywhere on my phone as a PDF. And it's now saved to my phone. You can share and export. You can email it to yourself. You can share it. You can make a copy of it. You can send a copy. If you click send a copy, I want to send a PDF. Where are you sending the PDF to? If you need to email it. And this allows you to save it to your drive. It allows you, if you're submitting it through Google Classroom, you can share it through Google Classroom. And it just gives you those options of how you're going to share it. But once you've done that, so I'm just going to go through my teacher one. So I went to my Canvas app. And if I was a student, I would go to my module. I would go to the assignment that I need to load it to. So let's just say I need to load to my algebra review. I would go to wherever the submission is, submit it. I've already pretend submitted here. But then you're able to submit the document and then go from there, and you're done. Yeah. The second option is after you made your Word document, what if you don't have those different PDF availability options on your phone? Well, the next option is you're going to go to your docs that you should have downloaded, and you're going to click on the file you want, and you're going to turn it into a Word doc. So you see where it says save as Word doc? You're going to click on that. You're going to save it as a Word doc. This is important. And so now you saved it as a Word doc. Okay, that's important. So notice I have that W now. This W tells me that this is a Word doc. Okay. So now we're going to go to pdfcandy.com.
I had a senior moment right here. I turned on the camera trying to open the internet. I don't know how I did it.
I was typing pdfcandy.com, and you see where it says Word to PDF. I'm going to click on Word to PDF, and I can click on my drive. I've connected my drive, but I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to connect it. It's going to ask me, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And it's going to pull up your document. So you see how I have that Word to PDF, that Word document? I'm going to click on that Word document, click select. It's going to upload it. It's going to do some thinking. It's thinking. It's like done. So it downloaded my file. It converted my file. I hit download, and now I have a PDF version of my file. Okay. And that PDF version, you can send the file, open with, print, but on mine, it saves it to my phone. Whatever yours should save to your phone also.
Android for life.
When my files are downloaded, they go to my
Huh?
files, and they usually go into my
Oh,
downloads.
my Android.
And there's
Uh-huh.
my PDF. And I
Oh,
can
no,
now
you just go to the
see it or
website. Go
whatever.
to Safari.
Now I can easily upload it to my Canvas and then upload it from there. And that's it.
All right. So let's practice making a file. So you took notes on paper, right? And now you need to turn it into something that you can submit. Okay. I will tell you that this method of submitting work is how I made it through grad school. Because my grad school used Canvas. And so I submitted pretty much all my work via my student app. Just making the document, uploading it. And the reason why we encourage PDF is because when a professor opens it on the other end, it doesn't get all shuffled, the sizing doesn't get messed up. It stays how you made it in your Word document. Does that make sense? And it can't be modified. All right. So are you all ready to try it? All right. So step one is that you do need Google Docs on your phone. Now, you don't want to do it now or later or with you, but you're in step one is download Google Docs. I'm going to turn on the light so that you have a better lighting. And then once you have the Google Doc, that's where you're going to create the new document. And as you're doing that, let me know if I can help you. And then once you have the document, you're going to practice submitting.